right, we are live with Naseema, who I am super excited to bring on. Naseema, welcome to the Money Bear podcast.
Hey, hey, what's up? Super
Uh,
excited to be here.
We're super stoked to have you. You've got some crazy stories that we're going to share today about stuff that really is really important to talk about. But before we get to that, kind of tell us who you are. What do you do specifically in the personal finance space, but also in life?
Sure. So, first and foremost, I'm a mom of two girls, a labor and delivery nurse, and I have a personal finance platform that kind of sprung out of nowhere, like on accident, called Financially Intentional. And it's where I share my journey of just learning about my finances. And I was always taught each one teach one. So I just share my lessons there. Started off with me talking about paying off debt and evolved into just me sharing stories about financial freedom and, just my life.
I love it. I love it. And actually, we met earlier. I want to say this year when you joined the Finance Creators Mastermind, or you might have joined in December.
Yeah, I joined in December.
Yes,
Mhm.
she's one of the
Mhm.
OG members of the Finance
Yes.
Creators Mastermind. So that's when we
Mhm.
started to get to know each other, and it's been great getting to know you. So, uh, first, before we dive into what I think is going to be the main focus of this episode, specifically representation in the nursing industry, I
Mhm.
kind of want to talk about your debt payoff story first, because rumor has it you paid off more than $1 million of debt.
Just under $1 million
Just
of debt.
under. Okay, so what was that from?
I know everybody is like, first of all, why should I listen to somebody who has $1 million in debt? And it's just like, okay, like, let me break it down for you, boo, because it's not that uncommon. It's just that people just don't do the math. Okay. So let's do some math here. So I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. My house at that time, and I paid off this debt in under 3 years, and that happened in 2017. So during that time, I had a house in the San Francisco Bay Area, which don't say no, you just sold your house and then you paid off all your debt. No, boo, that's not what happened. But I had $200,000 in student loans. I had like a 403B loan to pay for the down payment of my house, and then just hella other debt. And I went through a marriage and divorce during that time, so I also had some debt from my husband, but just like hella basic shit, cars,
Mhm.
education, and housing or the biggest chunks of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what motivated you to be like, okay, listen, I'm gonna pay all of this off so that I don't have to deal with this anymore?
Well, it was interesting. I was a single mom, had my daughter, and she was turning one. And I was like in a place where I was scared because I was broke. And I made too much money to be broke. Like, who makes six figures? Like, at that time, I think I was making like $230,000 a year or more as a nurse. Like, who makes that much money and doesn't have anything to show for it? And as a matter of fact, I was in debt to my sister, like, because she had to help me pay for my blinds on my house, my brand new McMansion that had 36 windows. And yeah,
36 windows. Oh my god.
yes,
Those
that
are the
all needed blinds.
Oh my gosh, those are the things of like home ownership that people don't talk about, where it's like, yeah, you
Yes.
have this new house, but you got to do something with the windows, and that
Yeah.
is not cheap.
Ain't cheap at all. So when I couldn't come up with the money for that, and I knew I was in a hole, and I was just like, damn, like this has got to change. And really, what I thought needed to change was because, I have all these degrees, and so I've been in school for my whole life. And so learning about investing is something that I had put off because I really felt like I needed to pay the same amount of attention to learning to invest as I did in preparing for my schoolwork. And so I was like, all right, I'm done with all my schooling. I can really dive into learning this investing thing and maybe I'll be better with my money. And lo and behold, that's not really what it was all about. What it was all about is just that I just did not know the basics of personal finance. And it's not something that we're taught. Now, mind you, like I said, I made good money. I have all the degrees, but I was never taught about money. And so that's what I had to learn is that just because you make money don't mean that you're good with money. And so I set out on a process to get good with money. And a lot of it was like figuring out like all this debt that I have and paying that off. Now, initially, um, I stumbled upon like a really big personal finance guru that we all know and love.
He who must not be named.
Exactly. And so I was following his plan. And long story short, his plan ultimately did not work for me, but it gave me a very strong foundation on how I was going to get on the other side and take control of my money instead of letting my money control it. So some very good things that I learned was zero based budgeting. And zero based budgeting is not for everybody, but it shifted that relationship for me. And so, whatever budgeting technique that works for you, you do that. But whenever you get in control of that, that's going to shift your relationship with money.
Hmm.
And then I paid off all my debt using the debt snowball. And so, like I said, I didn't just like sell my house and pay off debt. I was really intentional about every single dollar that came in. And with zero based budgeting, what I did was not only just give every single dollar an assignment, but prioritize my debt payoff. And what most people do is they wait until like the end of the month. They say, oh, well, at the end of the month, whatever is left over, I'm going to put that towards my debt. I prioritize that. And I said, I want to be debt free by my 36th birthday. Therefore, I have to pay X, Y, and Z towards my debt. And this is a number I have never even thought conceptualized I can do, but just because I prioritize that and then I shifted the rest of my money around it, it became possible. And not only did
Yeah.
I meet that goal more times than not, I often surpassed it just because it was there. And that's what people don't understand. They're always just like, I don't have enough money to do this, I don't have enough money to do that, but they're not really intentional with every dollar. And that's what changed the game for me. And once I was able to build that muscle to pay down that debt, that same rigor and way of looking at money now automatically went into like the way that I invested. And so I shifted from like this debt freedom journey to just a total overall just like financial freedom journey.
Hmm.
And that encompasses being able to save and invest aggressively so that I can make work optional.
Yes, I love that story. I also started with a zero-based budget and I did the same thing you did, which was I focused on like, okay, what's my number one goal for what I'm going to put on debt every month? And it was like that became the most important number on my budget. It was like
Hmm.
nothing else is going to happen until that happens. And I think like you said, that mindset shift of like treating your savings goals, treating your investing goals, treating your payoff debt goals like a bill is a huge mindset shift. And it's literally this idea of like paying yourself first, right?
Yes.
And people
Yes.
would always tell me, like, oh, yeah, you just got to pay yourself first. But I never really knew what that meant. And I feel like
Exactly.
the zero based budget is like the perfect way of like you literally put your savings goals, your debt goals, your investing goals into the budget. And it's like you prioritize those above everything else. Like we
Yes.
figure out a way to make rent every month, we figure out a way to pay our taxes, we figure out all of those things. Why can we not figure out how to like save for ourselves as well?
Exactly.
Yes, I love it. I also started through Who Must Not Be Named, so, like, I get it. And it didn't work for me either. I did the envelope method for, like, 6 years unsuccessfully, and I don't know why I never thought to myself, like, "Maybe I should try something else," but I was just like, "Nah, this'll work for me eventually."
Nah, boo, like, after 3 months, if it ain't working, give it
Right?
up.
Right? And there's so many different options too. So it's like, but that's the
Yes.
stuff you don't know until you get into the finance industry or into the personal finance like world. So it sounds like for you did become debt free at 36, right?
A little bit later, I had some hiccups towards the end of my journey. So I was almost there. I was almost debt free by my 36th birthday. And then, so this is the part that didn't work for me because, they say don't invest while you're paying off debt. Well, I'm a high income earner. And then, so that opportunity that I missed out on in dropping my taxable income by contributing to my pre tax retirement accounts cost me $30,000 just in that 1 year in taxes. And that also, well, the other factor in that was that by that time I was going through a divorce. And when you're going through a divorce, you have to file married filing separately, which knocks out all kinds of tax breaks that you would normally get. And so, right at the end, like I was like close under $20,000 in debt that I had to pay off. And I was just going to knock that out no matter what it took. But then I got this IRS bill that was $30,000. And then then I was going through my divorce. So literally like 5 days before my birthday, in chorus, they was like, well, You're the breadwinner. Doesn't matter that he was in jail for abusing you. This is California. It's a no fault state. So you need to pay him $15,000. So that was another $45,000 that got
Oh my
added
gosh.
on.
Just when you're at the finish line, when you're like, cool,
Mhm.
I'm here. It's gonna, and then it's just boom, right
But
back
that's
down.
how it goes, and people
Yeah.
always think that, everything is so linear and that once you figure it out, it's all good. No, just figuring it out is just one part of it, but you still gotta go through the stuff. I got a whole bunch of testimonies about, like, having to start over and having to reset, and that's what is real about this journey, but the most powerful thing is that my bounce back game is so strong because
Yes.
all of these financial muscles I have built. So you can knock me down, and I have been knocked down hella times, but you are not going to take me out. And boo, I come back so much harder.
Heck yes. That is what I love about your page is that you do share like the ups and downs. You've shared like, yeah, this journey has not been one step after another, like straight. Like that's just not how it works. And I think so many of us, we are afraid to share the mistakes on the financial creator sides, but it's like that's where the learning happens. You have to share your mistakes because that's the realistic side of things. I
Yeah,
loved talking about, everybody's net worth this year has probably gone down. And it's like,
hella far.
oh yeah, and it's like it's so important for people like us to talk about that because it's like, oh, it's happening to them too. It's not just me. I didn't mess up. I didn't do this wrong because I feel like so many new investors who like started within the last 2 years are like, did I do it wrong? Like my net worth is going down. I'm losing all my money. And it's like, nope, this is part of the process. This is part of the process, just like those hits that come are part of the process.
Yes.
I love it. I love your like my comeback game is like that's where it's at.
Listen, listen, it's infallible.
Yeah, yeah. So you not speaking of like coming back and dealing with things. So let's switch into talking a little bit about something that you started discussing on Instagram pretty recently that went crazy viral for you. So do
Mhm.
you want to kind of tell us about what's been going on in Instagram? What is that the viral reel that we're mentioning?
Well, it was like 2 kinda back to back, and they all stemmed around first of all, first and foremost, I'm a nurse, and I don't really talk about, like, nursing that much on my finance page, but it all ties together because there is a way that I can show up as a nurse because I'm not tripping off of the money. I'm not coming to work for a paycheck anymore. And that's
Mhm.
one of the things that even though I'm not technically financially independent, because I have like built, this strong financial background now, I don't care. Like I'm not tied to any kind of workplace. So if something happens to me, I'm gonna be cool.
It's
So
that FU
it's
money.
that
Yes,
FU
you
money and
got
that
all that FU money.
and believe me, my bosses are sick of me. They are so sick of me. Okay. They love me, but they don't know what to do with me. Okay. Cause I stand up and I advocate for myself. And the most important thing is I can show up uniquely as myself. And I can show up for my patients, my coworkers, and I really take that seriously. But anyway, so what happened after um it all ties together for like my debt freedom journey. So after I sold my house towards the end of my journey, I moved back to my hometown, and I was working at a hospital that was within. I just kind of transferred hospitals, let's just say that. And the hospital that I transferred to, I saw some horrific things that were going on, and I was an experienced labor and delivery nurse at that time, and I spoke up about it. And for the first time in my career, I was met with a lot of backlash, and I was shocked because I had always been taken seriously, especially if it's coming from me, because I don't complain. Like I am like that worker that shows up and shows out. Like I do my work, and everybody usually comes to me. And so when this issue came up and I spoke up about it, I was met with a lot of resistance. So the issue was that I saw a lot of Black women, especially in labor, being treated like unethically, um, and being harmed in ways unnecessarily. And I didn't come there and just complain. I said, "Hey, this is what I see. These are some things that I feel like we can implement immediately that would help this." And I was met with, "Oh, I think the problem is you." And so I was like, "All right."
You're like, this is interesting.
I was like, "All right, well, I'll see how this is gonna go." And because I worked in the back end of that organization for longer than I had been a nurse at that time, I think. Um, for you guys don't know, before I was a nurse, I was a hospital administrator. I have a master's
Mm,
in healthcare administration, so I know the
mhm.
back end and the administrative process is a lot, and a lot of people don't know that. So don't play
Yeah.
me. Um,
Yes.
so I was just like, all right, I know what to do. In order to remedy this problem, I'm just going to have to take it a different path. And that path led me on quite a challenging exploration of this company. And like, so those Black women that I was speaking up against, basically, it kind of turned in on me. Well, now I was that Black woman
Mm,
that I was being taken advantage of and not
yeah.
listened to, and all these kind of things. Like I wasn't getting access to things that I needed to, and so it ultimately snowballed into me getting fired and immediately seeking damages for that.
Mhm.
And so that was all settled a couple of years later. But I spoke on that. And then the other post that went viral was just talking about like why representation matters. Representation definitely mattered in that sense because I knew what it was like to be in those women's shoes.
Mhm.
And as a nurse and as a patient, and being able to speak up for them. But then also, like just being able to speak to other nurses about things like implicit bias and how that can
Mhm.
affect your care. I shared a story on how, just somebody patting their head was construed as something that needed a psych consult. What a psych consult for a Black mom is just not a psychiatrist coming in and checking to see if you're okay. Oftentimes that leads to negative implications on your medical record,
Mm,
medication, having your children taken away from you, like serious implications that a lot of people may or may not understand, but it has serious, serious implications. Instead of like a nurse being inquisitive, like, hey, why is it that you're hitting yourself on your head?
mhm.
Oh, I'm just scratching my head, you know?
Mhm.
But
Right.
if you don't know, and then you don't take the time to explore, but instead, like to this, what this nurse would have said is that, well, I was trying to get the issue addressed.
Mm.
And so by getting the issue addressed, she escalated the issue into somewhere that it didn't need to be.
Mhm. And
And,
now
and
is that now that her hat sending her into a psych eval specifically with this patient, that's permanently on her record, right? Her health
yeah,
record.
yeah. Mhm.
That's so messed up.
Yeah, it can be unless a psychiatrist comes and be like, "Girl," but I can tell you from where I worked, we did not have psychiatrists that would have done that.
Right.
But luckily, I was able to remedy that. But what if I wasn't there? And how many times has that
Right.
happened before? And how many times does that happen just throughout healthcare? And that is why we have in all of this, the stories that I've shared is like small factors that snowball into why Black women in the United States have the highest maternal morbidity and mortality.
Mhm.
Um, and so, I speak up on this, but how this ties all back into personal finance is that being able to have control over your money gives you so much more power, period.
Yes. Mhm.
Power as a patient to be able to pursue things um, legally, if it's malpractice, power, as a nurse who lost her job. Like people look at like how things got settled and they're just like, oh, well, well, you came up off of these people. I lost my job. I did not have a
Right.
job. I went from working 6 days a month to 6 days, I mean, 6 days a week to 6 days a month. So, but I was able to do that
Mhm.
because of where I was at. So, like, I don't think people understand that part
Right.
and the
Right. Well, and
implications of that.
And you're the perfect example of, like, the fact that you had that FU money, that security that gave you more ability to speak out against the bullshit, because instead
Yeah.
of you thinking about, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my job, which is a reality for so many people who do not have that FU money. You're like, I don't care because I don't need it. So I'm going to speak out against what is wrong. And obviously it went the way that it did, and luckily it ended up in you getting a settlement. But it's shocking to me. Well, shocking is probably not the right word. I know those inequities exist. I know how awful they are, but it's so frustrating how often women are silenced, and how often Black women are silenced, and how the pressure is put on one person to like make sure that this is not going to happen. Like, how are you supposed to be the advocate for every single person in there if not everyone else is aware of it? It's like you can't be everywhere.
Yeah, and even in sharing my story, like I got a lot of backlash, like, well, what did you do for these women now? I mean, like now that that happened, I'm like, boo, like I can't take responsibility for
No.
everything. Like, let's hold these institutions accountable for something.
Mhm.
Okay. Like
Mhm.
I spoke up, I lost my job. Okay. That is
You did the
payment.
most. You did the most.
That is payment enough. Like, come on, boo. Like, don't hit me with that. I can't be everything to everybody. I
Right.
can't do everything. And I feel like that's how we get attacked. It's just like, oh, um, you're supposed to be the voice. Now you're supposed to take this action. Like I have to be the one. I was like it's like
No, no, it's just like,
it's like
ta
a slave having to pay their slave master back, right?
right,
So you're just
right.
like, okay, like I'm the one that suffered. Okay.
Mhm,
I'm the one
mhm.
that suffered. Okay, maybe I get a little bit of what is it called? Reparations, but now
Yeah,
I still owe you money because I got
right,
reparations for the atrocities that you did to me. Like you
right.
sound stupid. Like what sense does that make?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. No, it's so wild. It goes back to even just like white people need to take responsibility for learning this stuff on their own. They need to be
Right.
they need to stop relying on people of color to teach them for them, or be the leaders like of the diversity and inclusion or representation,
Right.
because it's like, no, we can't do it's like, imagine going into a room full of women who are trying to like fight for women's rights. It's like it doesn't change unless we've got men in the room as well. Like it doesn't change unless we've got the aggressors in there as well. So it's so frustrating, and especially because, as you discussed in your the first conversation that you had with them, is like you came solution oriented. You came to the table and was like, these are the issues that I'm seeing that are actively hurting patients, and here are some solutions to help with this, and you were ignored. So it's like you came solution based. So I'm curious, and I don't know if you can share this or not. What do you think, what were some of those solutions?
Well, it was like just like having C-section drills, making sure
Mm,
that the residents were properly monitored because there weren't, because this medical center was so busy, like they did not have the right oversight, and just
mhm,
actually learning to listen to patients. And that's something that you would think is something that's taught in nursing school and medical school, none of that stuff. But those are some things. But the other thing about it is that I have no way of knowing that these things were implemented either. I got
mhm,
fired, and this organization in itself has so much turnover. I doubt anything has like really changed, but I can't
mm.
be responsible for that. Like
No, you
I did my
can't.
part and I will continue to do my part. But I think in sharing these stories and being able to use my platform opens up a lot of dialogue and conversation, and maybe some solutions can come into play even other places. And so I think that's the power of just first of all taking control of my finances, being able to share, but also being able to build a platform where people can learn and grow. So
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think that's amazing, and clearly it resonated with a lot of people, which
clearly,
is
but sadly,
exactly.
like if you read through those comments, and there's hell of them, like thousands and thousands, but it's stories upon stories upon stories upon stories of mistreatment,
Mhm,
and it's heartbreaking.
mhm,
It took me out for a minute. Like it
mhm.
has been hard to kind of just re-engage after all the stuff, because a lot of times I don't share a lot of things because it's re-traumatizing.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it's like you are doing important work, but again, like
Yeah.
that's why it can't all fall on one person. Is like, you got to take care of yourself as well. So that actually leads me perfectly into the next question, which is how do you keep a level head and how do you keep like your sanity when not only dealing with all the issues that are in healthcare, which we know there are hella issues in healthcare, but specifically seeing like these kind of atrocities that are happening in terms of inequity in healthcare? Like, how are you like keeping your peace? Just out of curiosity from a personal, I'm like, you're amazing. You're amazing in that, in your ability to just kind of keep your zen and continue in your own mission, in your own creating of finance and also in what you do at work.
Let me just say therapy is a wonderful thing. So that's
Yes.
first and foremost. I
Mhm.
advocate for therapy, even if there's no issue, just like proactively therapy. But the thing is that I'm not gonna be the one that's gonna be on the front lines of a protest.
Mhm.
I'm not going to be like the one that's like, you know, the spokesperson of the Black Lives Matter movement. But
Yeah.
what I am doing actively every day is giving people the tools to empower themselves so that they can have the financing. And it all comes down to money to speak up for those things that they believe in, those social issues that
Mhm.
they believe in. I am actively putting myself in a position to kind of create a little bit of a bubble around myself so that I can put myself, if I have to speak up for myself or my kids or other people, I have the resources to do so. I am cushioning my kids so that they don't have to go through the BS and the biases and they can
Mhm.
opt out of these systemic oppressions that I had to deal with if they
Mhm.
want to. So that's how I stay sane because it's bigger than me. And I
Mhm.
know that what I'm doing, no matter if I don't, if I don't make money off of it, and that's not the goal. The goal is to empower as many people as possible and being as transparent as possible and sharing my story so that people understand what's possible for them. And so people understand the importance of getting your finances together because it's more than just having money. Wealth
Mhm.
is about access to things that you necessarily would not have before. Wealth is about being able to help other people and to be in different rooms and to build relationships with people that you might not have had if you did not have wealth. So it's bigger than just a dollar figure. Like people just need to understand that it's not about greed. It's not about stacking coins for the sake of stacking coins. It's about really being able to advocate for yourself and the things that you believe in.
Mhm. Heck yes. Oh my gosh, I could not agree more. It frees everything up. It gives
Yeah.
you that power, like you
Yeah.
said. I love that. So if somebody was looking at your story, seeing what you've been through, both in terms of going into almost $1 million of debt, getting out of $1 million of debt, and then growing your net worth to almost 1 million now, right?
Yeah.
And that was a really short period of time. What was that time frame?
About 6 years. Actually,
Woo!
I just had my 6-year anniversary on
Congratulations.
Instagram, like, on the 3rd, and I was like, "Oh, this is funny." Yeah, 6 years.
That's so cool.
Mhm.
I love that you're
Yeah.
like an OG poster. Not a lot of people were posting about finance back in 2016. I love
No.
that. So, somebody who has seen that journey and like 6 years is a short period of time, really. Like you did this quickly. What would you say are like your 3 biggest tips for somebody who is going through something that may be similar?
I would just say get started. It's probably one thing that you can do right now that can change the trajectory of your finances. Get started. If that's just listing out like what you spend money on. My whole thing was um, I I took an action, like, every day, or I tried to do an action every day, or every time I listened to a podcast, I would implement something. So a lot of the stuff, like, I spent hours and hours and hours listening to personal finance books and podcasts, like, whatever I was doing, running errands, driving, all those stuff, and that's an action right there. Just, like,
Mhm.
change your mindset, change your circle of influence, right? And so that's what I would listen to. And then I would just do the things. I would do the things, but also I would share the things that I was learning on my platform. Like if you go back
Mm,
through, it's ugly.
mhm.
But if you go back through, I have like all the stuff that I was learning along the way, the quotes, the tips, the things that I would just learn and share and implement. And those things are super, super impactful and they just build on each other. And so I would just say, so first thing, get started.
Mhm.
Second thing, like in changing your circle of influence, like listen, like think about the things that you're consuming. Think about the people that you're surrounding yourself with. If everybody that you're surrounding yourself with is broke, you can't help but to be broke. That doesn't mean get rid of your friends. It just means like curate your social media, like your Instagram, your Facebook, to only people that you aspire to.
Mhm.
And once you start seeing the things that they're talking about and they're doing, then it's going to change how you look at things. So that's number two. Curate your experience. This is your life. You have control of what you see and do. And then three, like it's possible. Believe
Mm.
that it's possible and say that it's possible and tell yourself that it's possible. And I think we aren't taught, you have to prioritize yourself. We have
Mhm.
not been taught as a society to love ourselves.
Mhm.
And loving yourselves means believing that you can do whatever you put your mind to. We have been taught that, believing that loving ourselves is like vain and
Mm.
all of these kind of things that is not. A lot of things that can be fixed in your life is when you like take a look inward and see how you
Mhm.
can improve and work on that. So self-improvement is one of those things that I take seriously and something that I do every day. And I
Mhm.
think once you get in touch with that, a lot more becomes possible for you. So what are
Mhm.
3 things? Do something, curate your circle of influence, and love yourself.
Love those tips. I love it because it's so holistic. Like, I think
Mhm.
a lot of the times we think that money is just like the practical stuff that you do. It's the budget you put in place, it's the debt payoff plan you put in place, it's the automating your investments. But it's so much of it is mental. And it's like
Yeah.
with anything you do in life, especially if there's going to be challenges, you have to know why you're doing it and you have to look inward because if
Yeah.
not, you're going to keep running into obstacle after obstacle and never really know why. And it's because you probably haven't done the mental work that you need in order to allow yourself that success. I feel like every couple of years, or really every couple of months, I'm dealing with that myself as well, where I'm like, okay, we're at this new stage. What do we got to adjust in the mindset here? Like, I feel like I'm very much going through that right now as well. But
Yeah.
it's like, again, progress isn't linear, whether it's in your
Yes.
finances or in your personal growth journey as well. So, what's one way that you said you practice self care every day? What's one thing you do for yourself every day?
Um, this is falling off, but I do some form of physical activity. I work
Mhm.
out, I walk, ride my Peloton. I have to
Love
do
it.
something like that. But then another good practice is gratitude. Like
Mm.
the first thing I do when I wake up, open up my notes app and just write 3 things I'm grateful for.
I love that. It's so
Yeah.
modern too. You just put it in your phone rather than
Yes.
having to. That's actually one of the things that I worked on recently is like I always tell myself I'm going to journal and I never journal because I don't want to write at the end of the day. But I started recording myself. I started like
Yes.
talking to myself and like video journaling and like they just get deleted. I don't do anything with them, but it's like nice to air it out and like literally talk to yourself like
It
therapy,
is.
giving yourself therapy almost.
Yes. Facts. I love that.
Yes.
Actually, that's a good idea.
Oh my gosh, because at the end of the night, sometimes the last thing I wanna do is write, but, like, I could talk forever. I'm sure that surprises you after being in the mastermind
I
room.
am very surprised, Chloe. I'm very
You're
surprised
so
by
sweet, so sweet.
that.
Okay, I have 2 more questions for
Mhm.
you.
Okay.
So before I get to my last question, where can people find you? What are you doing right now? What like do you have downloadables? Is there a link in the bio or a link in the notes we need to put? Tell me about what you've got going on right now.
Oh my god, I was like, "I'm not doing anything," and then I like rattle off like all this stuff that I'm doing.
Right?
People are like, "What the hell?" So yeah, you can find me at Financially Intentional. I mostly hang out on Instagram. Right now I'm just kind of rebranding. I had to do a little bit of a step back last year and kind of just live for the last
Mm,
couple of years actually and kind of just like recalibrate my whole life. And
mhm,
so my brand kind of suffers. So I'm working on that. I have a kind of do it yourself course in on a link in my bio on Instagram. I am teaching a class on the 13th. I don't know when this is airing, but I'm going to start a hella easy investing kind of class because everybody is asking me about that. That's part of the course, but I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on that. And then I'm planning a trip to Costa Rica.
That's so fun.
Yes, so for 23, we're going to Costa Rica in April, and so it would be so dope to just, like, link with like-minded people and
Yes.
just chill. It ain't gonna be no teach I'm not gonna teach you how to budget, I'm not gonna teach you how to do none of that stuff, but like I said, it's about your circle of influence, and so that's really going to hone in on that aspect of, getting your finances together.
I love that. I was actually curious about that because remember seeing you post it and you're like, design this trip with me. I didn't realize you were inviting other people along. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be so fun. I'm gonna have to look at
Yes.
it. I love that because, like you
Yes.
said, the circle of influence is so important because once it becomes normal seeing other people succeed, it normalizes for you as well. And you're just like, yeah, no,
Exactly.
this is like failure is not an option. Although
At all.
failing's obviously part of it, but
Right.
you just keep going and going and going. So I love that. We will put links to that stuff down in the show notes. So Nasima, this is the question that I love asking everybody who comes on. What is your first money memory? And what did you learn from it?
Oh, that's a good
It always stumps
question.
people. I'll give you some examples so that you can think about it. I had Mark on, and Mark from Better Wallet, and his first money memory was being a candy drug dealer. So he would buy a bunch of candy from the corner store and he would upcharge it to sell it to his friends. But the money that he made was really just funding his own habit. So I was like, "You're basically a candy drug dealer, sir."
Yes. Well, the thing is that from a very young age, I told myself that I was going to be rich, and so I
Yes.
always made money.
Hmm.
Always made money. I was doing hair, I was the babysitter, I was all of those things. I was the person, like, when my dad went to Office Depot, that was, like, looking at those business softwares, the business
I
software
love
that you would,
that.
like, put into your computer, those discs. Back in the day, they were floppy disks, and I was looking at all of that stuff, like and so, like, that was my money memory, but the most visceral kind of memory came, when I got into USC when I was 18, and I saw how much money that school cost, and I had never seen that much money written down on a piece of paper. It was like $40,000. But, like, to me, like, seriously, like, anything that pertains to me, I had never seen that much money
Hmm.
written down on a piece of paper, and I just remember thinking that this is not real.
Hmm.
It's not
Hmm.
it's not real. It's not real money, like, because I can't even conceptualize it.
Hmm.
And so that's why it was so easy for me to go into student loan debt because it didn't seem real. Like, I did not
Yeah.
know how to process that.
Hmm.
And me looking back and not understanding, like, how to process that money, like, how can you get good with money if you can't even conceptualize
Hmm.
it? And so, yeah, like, so that's, like, a really, really visceral, like, memory
No,
that I have, like, I didn't know.
that is so interesting that you said that because I was trying to think back to. I remember when I got into college in Chicago, and it ended up being a place that I didn't even end up going to. But they told me, like, to go to school there for the degree I wanted, I was going to be over $80,000 in debt for like a creative writing degree. And I was like, well, this doesn't make sense. Like, I'll be lucky if I get a job with a creative writing degree. And so then I ended up going to community college for a little bit, and then I went to University of Iowa. And I remember looking, and they were like, "Oh, yeah, it's still going to be $20,000 a year." And in my mind, I was like, "I don't know anybody who has $60,000 of student loan debt. So, like, surely this isn't real. Like, this isn't going to be what actually happens." Obviously, it did, and then
Yeah.
you also get the interest and tacked onto it. But it was just like exactly what you said. Like, it was so absurd that you couldn't really even imagine that's actually reality and that's what's going to actually happen.
But the thing for me is I didn't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
I was always taught you have to go to school by any means necessary. I was the
Mhm.
oldest child. I was like that one. I was
Mhm.
that hope, right? And so it was just like, well, it is what it is. That's what it is. That's what it's going to be. And
Yeah.
so, like, it was different for me because it was like debt. Okay, whatever. I guess that's what is supposed to happen because people tell me that student loans are good debt anyway. So
Yeah.
I mean, I could, but the thing is, like, I felt like I didn't have a choice at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think a lot of us felt the same way because it's just like,
Mhm.
this is what we do.
Yeah,
So, welcome
yeah,
to the millennial experience.
exactly.
This was so lovely. I'm so glad you could come on today. I learned so much about your story and like I just think you're so inspiring and I like you
Aw.
said, you're incredibly resilient and I love that the FU money has just allowed you to be an advocate in your community but also do whatever the heck you want.
Hey, listen, it ain't for the faint of heart. And
No.
I might be smiling, but a lot of times I'm crying because the
Yeah.
things that, I still have to endure. And so
Yeah.
don't think that just because I have this platform and I have all these things good going for me, like the shit don't get real because it
Right.
does. And I don't think people understand that. Like it's real out here in the field. So, you
Yeah.
know, even when you get there, it's just it builds a little bit of a bubble around you, but you're still not protected. But it's still worth doing 1,000,000% because it's bigger than you.
Yes, absolutely. And again, therapy. We gotta have like
Therapy,
circles
yes.
around therapy. We're like, therapy.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.